Welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. It's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. So glad you could join us again today, folks. 2 more games to go. We've got 1 hour to talk Giants football with you as they will take on the Indianapolis Colts. 1 o'clock kickoff here at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. Our phone number is 201-939-4513. And guess what? All the lines are now working again. We've been at it all week, and I think we can say with confidence, Pearson, you agree? With confidence we can say it?
Yes, we can say it. We have 3 lines.
All 3 lines are working once again. It took long enough. I think we were waiting for the next lunar eclipse, but we finally got them all fixed. And we can now take as many of your phone calls as we possibly can over the course of the next hour. Paul Dottino and Matt Citak with you here on Giants.com. And as a reminder, the entire program can be heard on the archive as part of our podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at Giants.com/podcasts, just in case you guys aren't listening or watching the show live and decide you're going to pick it up later on, which a lot of people apparently like to do. All right, so the Giants are playing the Colts this week, and you were out there with Coach, as I was.
Yep.
We did get some injury updates. The good news, let me just start with the good news, and I'll have Matt fill in the rest. Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors were going to try to do some stuff at practice today, and it's a wait-and-see situation. As Neighbors said yesterday, it'll probably be a game day decision. Well, we'll just have to see. But at least for the moment, they have not been ruled out.
Yes, and Coach actually used the word hopeful when describing their status for Sunday. So obviously we won't know for sure, probably until Sunday at 11:30. But the fact that they were going out there to do something on the practice field today, and the fact that Coach actually used the word hopeful, obviously means that there is at least some level of hope that they will be able to take the field on Sunday. And just real quick, as we are talking about Malik and Tyrone, I know this has been a stat that, I've seen on Twitter going around, but the 2 of them are very, very close, where if they suit up on Sunday, they have a very good chance of reaching this. Both of them hitting 1,000 scrimmage yards, or 1,000 yards of offense. Malik needs 29 yards. Tyrone Tracy needs 16. Obviously, this is rushing and or receiving, both. And if they do this, they are only the 3rd pair of rookie teammates ever to have 1,000 yards of offense in the same season, and the first since 2006.
And honestly, that blows my mind. Seriously, you consider how many years the NFL's been around. I mean, just wow. Now, not surprising that these 2 talented players have performed so well, because I think we knew in training camp that Tracy was going to be good, and we all expected Neighbors to be an impact player as soon as possible. So I don't want to be misinterpreted. That's not why I'm shocked. I'm shocked because so few people have done it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Reggie Bush and Marquise Colston was the last pair of rookie teammates in 2006, and prior to that, it was 1960 that a pair of rookie teammates were able to hit 1,000 yards of offense. So
truly incredible.
Yeah, it's a rare feat, and if they play just Sunday or both games, the final games, they obviously have a very good chance of reaching these marks because they are not very far off, and both of them are averaging more yards from scrimmage than they are far away from 1,000. So if they're both suiting up, hopefully they hit that mark on Sunday.
And Marcus Goldston was from Hofstra, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Local product, which gives you another local tie into that deal.
Yeah.
Also want to mention that Neighbors has 97 catches, okay? And we know that the record for a rookie is Puka Nacua, 105 in one season, and Brock Bowers has 101. So the Raiders tight end certainly has a better chance to snap the 105 than Neighbors does. I would take a guess that both of them are probably going to go over 105.
Yeah, if Malik plays these final 2 games, even if he only plays, one of the games, there's at least a chance of him hitting 105 or surpassing 105. If he plays both, same goes for Bowers, I think they both have a good chance at beating Puka Nacua's record.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bowers is 4 receptions ahead of Neighbors at the time, so he is a slight favorite to finish with the all-time rookie reception record, but as we've seen, you never know what can happen. So that's that. And just real quick, back to the practice or the injury report.
Yes.
There are 4 players that Coach Dable said will not practice today, and he said that there is a good chance that they do not play against the Colts. And those 4 players are John Michael Schmitz, linebacker Micah McFadden, and then 2 defensive backs, corner Greg Stroman and safety Raheem Lane. If John Michael Schmitz is unable to go, which is at least trending in that direction, Coach has already said that Greg Van Roten will slot over from left guard to center. Or is it right guard? Right guard, sorry. Right guard to center.
And by the way, JMS was wearing a boot yesterday. So I'd say his odds of playing are not very good.
Yeah, Coach as we know, Coach doesn't love to rule guys out for sure on Friday when there's a game on Sunday. But the way he was speaking, it's definitely trending in the direction that John Michael Schmitz will not suit up. So Greg Van Roten takes over at center, and Jake Kubas will likely slot in for Greg Van Roten at right guard. And Aaron Stinney, who technically is still in the concussion protocol, but has been a full participant on Wednesday and Thursday at practice, which certainly puts him on track to clear the protocol in time to play on Sunday, which would make the starting offensive line. We got Van Roten at center, Kubas and Stinney at guards, and Jermaine Illuminor and Evan Neal at the 2 tackle spots. So that looks like that'll be the offensive line heading into Sunday's game. This is a Indianapolis defense that has been a little up and down in terms of their pass rush. Has had some games where they've really gone after the quarterback, other games where kind of the pass rush sort of disappeared, but they certainly have some talented players, especially on their front 7, that can get after the quarterback.
Well, it seems to me that the way it's going to shake down is that Stinney will be the right guard and Kubas will be the left guard. He played left guard last week in Atlanta, making his first NFL start. The interesting part about it is that Kubas, in his 5 years at North Dakota State, was a right guard and started in each of the last 3 seasons at that spot. He gets to the Giants, and, he makes the team out of training camp, but the Giants are working guys all over the place, especially the backups. And when he finally got a chance to crack the lineup, he wound up having to play left guard. Well, now, why is that important? Well, I know you guys want to know, so I'm going to tell you. DeForest Buckner, the right defensive tackle on the Indianapolis Colts, is one of the best in the business. He's got 6.5 sacks in only 10 games this year. He missed about a month of the season earlier because of a high ankle sprain. DeForest Buckner is a multiple-time Pro Bowl pick and an All-Pro. Many years with the Niners, has been another handful of years with the Colts. This guy is a real force. He's powerful, he's quick, he's crafty. I've always respected him as one of the best defensive tackles in the game. And he is going to be lining up, in all honesty, looking at that A-gap between Kubas and Greg Van Roten, who, by the way, is only going to be making his second ever NFL start at center. He made one back in 2022 against Miami Dolphins. So, that is a matchup that you are going to want to watch in this game, because Tracy has an aggravation of his ankle. We assume he's going to play. We think. It's hopeful, right?
We hope.
Singletary will be in there, and as he has obviously gotten some touches the last couple of weeks as well. But the big key for the Giants, if they're going to get a running game going, they must get Van Roten and Kubas to contain Buckner. DeForest Buckner, over the years, has wrecked many a games. Now, he is not Aaron Donald. He is not Dexter Lawrence. But to say that he's just a shade on the shelf under those guys is not an understatement. The guy can play.
Yeah, he definitely can. I mean, I feel like he's been one of the top, interior defensive linemen for years now. Maybe not at, as you said, maybe not quite at that Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence level, but he's certainly not far behind them. He's probably in the next tier.
There's no doubt. Probably at the top of the next tier.
Yeah, and honestly, the guy playing next to him is pretty dang good too at getting after the quarterback. Grover Stewart. Obviously not at the level of DeForest Buckner, but that is another guy that can get after the quarterback. He can, perform well, stop the run. So that is a pair of interior defensive linemen that the Giants' interior offensive line are definitely, going to have their hands full and have to keep a close eye on both of those guys.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that is a very big part of this game plan for the Giants. Make sure you don't let the interior of the Colts line. They play a 4-3, by the way. You don't want to let them control the narrative of the game. Now, on the other side, we buried the lead. Jonathan Taylor, over 1,100 yards rushing this year. He is 8th in the NFL in terms of the rushing race. The only thing that stopped this guy from being one of the premier backs in the league is injuries, because he's been hurt over the course of his, 6 years or whatever it is in the NFL. A few years ago, he led the league with 1,800 yards rushing. Do not for 1 second sleep on Jonathan Taylor. As the Giants' defensive players were telling me earlier in the week, I was talking to the secondary guys in particular, who have been pretty good in run support the last few weeks. They said, hey, I'm not gonna pull punches here. I said, guys, this guy's really, really good, and not a lot of people talk about him. They're like, he can run through you, he can run around you. He's coming off his second 200 rushing yard performance of his career. He just absolutely lit up Tennessee last week.
Yeah, 218 yards on the ground on 29 rush attempts, which comes out to 7.5 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. One of which was a 70-yard touchdown. I believe one of the other ones was
like 65.
Was a pretty far run as well.
There were 2 that were 65 plus, which gives him now.
His first touchdown was a 65-yard run, and then he followed that up the next quarter with a 70-yard touchdown run.
Since he came into the league in 2020, is that right? Is it 2020?
Jonathan Taylor, 2020, yes.
Okay. Since he's come into the league, he's had 6 rushes of 65 yards or more. That leads the NFL.
Yeah.
In that period of time. This guy, I have so much admiration for him because I think he's very underrated.
Yeah, he is tremendous. And I think you nailed it before by saying I think it's the injuries that have really caused him to sort of fall out of the at least the conversation of the best running backs in the NFL. But make no mistake, he 100% is one of the top, let's call it top 5 running backs in the NFL. He's right up there with your Derrick Henrys, Saquon Barkley's, Josh Jacobs. Like, he's part of that category. He might be at the bottom of that tier.
I think he's right underneath them. Underneath them.
I personally think when he's healthy,
top 5.
He is in that.
I give you
the bottom of that category. But I think he's right there. He's a tremendous, tremendous talent that I think is only gotten better, or at least better opportunities now that they have a mobile quarterback who is obviously not afraid to tuck the ball and run it himself, which, as we've seen across the NFL, when you have a mobile quarterback, it helps open up running lanes for your running back. And that's why, Derrick Henry, who's been one of the best running backs in the NFL for a decade now, is having one of his best seasons playing alongside Lamar Jackson. Saquon Barkley having one of his best seasons, or his best season, playing with Jalen Hurts. Even Brian Robinson playing with Jaden Daniels was having a great year prior to getting hurt. So,
well, Barkley did well with Daniel Jones running the ball too.
For sure, but he was never in the MVP conversation like he is this year.
One thing about Richardson, he better run the ball, because have you seen him throw it?
Yes, that is a weakness.
Bit of a problem.
Which you don't want your quarterback's weakness to
He's
be
at 48% completes on the season with 8 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions. 4th most in the NFL. Tied for 4th most, I believe.
Yes, he is a bit of a turnover machine, because he also has 9 fumbles, not all of which were lost, but 9 fumbles to go with his, 12 interceptions, and that's in 11 games.
That's just not good.
No, it is not good. That is why, John and I discussed this yesterday. The game plan on defense has to be sell out to stop the run. Put the ball in Anthony Richards' hands and force him to throw it against you.
Welcome to the lineup, Ty Summers.
Ty Summers, Darius Muasau. Giants are going to need those 2 guys in particular to step up, with it looking like Micah McFadden not be, expected to not play or trending in that direction at least. So, I mean, I feel like the last 3 weeks we've been saying number one priority has to be stop the run. And again, that is going to be the number one priority. But unlike the last 3 games where you have quarterbacks that are also at the very least solid passers, Anthony Richardson has not shown me enough as a pure passer to make me like that scared about him just from a passing perspective. Him with the ball in his hands running the ball is scary. He's one of the best, I think, dual threat or at least mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. He's like a freight train when he's running with the football.
He's a dangerous running quarterback.
Yes.
That's what he is.
And
he's got about 500 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns.
I will say, though, him as a passer, the one thing he is able to do well is throw that deep bomb down the field. He has hit on several of those this year where it's just like he just throws it like 50, 60 yards in the air down the field and it drops right into his receiver's
hand. The man
is
6'4", 255 pounds.
He could probably throw it 90 yards.
I was just going to say, he better be able to throw a deep ball.
Yeah.
At that size?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying he does it somewhat well. I mean, obviously the deep balls are hard. Those are the hardest passes to hit on for any quarterback around the NFL. But he tends to do it. He tends to hit on 1 or 2 of those a game.
Physically, he reminds me a lot of Dante Culpepper. You don't remember him, do you?
No, of course I do.
With the Vikes?
Dante Culpepper was a better passer by a mile.
I said physically.
Physically, okay.
Stature. You look at him behind center in the pocket. That's the frame you're looking at.
Yeah.
Dante Culpepper.
That's fair, yeah.
Now, Culpepper was a really good passer, too.
Yeah.
All right, until he started getting hurt, he was a very dangerous weapon. Had one of the great offenses of all time, and that 2000 Vikings team, that had a tremendous offense. That, by the way, the Giants shut out in the NFC Championship game, 41-0. We don't want to leave that out. It's a Culpepper-like frame. And I was actually talking to was it Pinnock? Yes, I talked to Jason Pinnock about it this week. And I said, he loves to tuck it down and run, and he is looking to gain yardage. He's not scrambling to throw. No. When he tucks it down, he's running forward. He's going downhill.
100%.
And Pinnock said to me, that's why when you see him tuck it, you treat him as a tight end. You don't treat him as a scrambling quarterback. You treat him as a tight end. Jason said there was a game earlier this year. They were looking at the tape, and they were down near the goal line. And Richardson lowered his shoulder and plowed his way into the end zone. I mean, there are some quarterbacks who will do that. Daniel Jones is one of them. Certainly the kid Josh Allen, I call him a kid, but to me, everybody's a kid, up in Buffalo. He's one of those guys who will do that. Richardson will too.
100%. And I feel like Richardson and I guess Daniel Jones kind of falls in this category too. They are quarterbacks that like to run the football that, as you just mentioned, instead of potentially sliding or going out of bounds, will look to pick up that extra yardage and take a hit or two. But that has also led to some more injuries for Anthony Richardson, which he's actually dealing with 2 injuries right now.
Yeah. He hasn't practiced this week.
He hasn't practiced this week. Now, there was a report that came out yesterday afternoon saying that they were optimistic that he'd still be able to go. But from the reports of the beat reporters in Indy that are at practice for the Colts right now, it looks like he's not practicing again today, which if you don't practice all week, that at least puts a cloud of doubt on your status for Sunday. So it seems like there is at least a chance
I also saw
they could be looking at Joe Flacco on
They
Sunday.
could be eliminated Saturday, which is interesting as well.
I believe
if the Chargers and Broncos win their games on Saturday, the Colts are done.
Yeah.
They will be knocked out of playoff contention by the time the Giants kick off with them at 1 o'clock.
Which the Chargers are playing the Patriots.
Yes.
And are, of course, favored in that game, despite the game being in New England. And then the Broncos are taking on the Bengals. It's in Cincinnati. And the Bengals are obviously one of those teams with the Colts that are still fighting for very slim playoff chances. They need to win on Saturday, tomorrow, in order to keep their hopes alive. So I feel like that game is certainly the one of the 2 that is more likely to swing in the Colts' favor.
I think so, too. Pearson, you got relatives still up there in Boston. Give a call up there. Find out what the weather is.
I'll do my best.
Foxborough
I
can
would
be
guess cold.
It could be a nasty place to play.
I will say though, I wouldn't sleep on Drake May. The way he's been playing, he's looked great. So you never know. And the Chargers defense, the last
You don't
couple
have to sell me on Drake May.
The Chargers defense, the last couple of weeks have also seemed like they may have taken a bit of a step back. And the Patriots, honestly,
They played the Bills well.
I was going to say they should have beaten the Bills last week. They honestly deserved to win that game. The Bills pulled it out because, in general, they're just a much better team. But, yeah, I mean, that's a feisty Patriots team. So I wouldn't put it past them to pull off an upset. But, yeah, there is a chance that by the time kickoff comes Sunday, this game is meaningless for Indy. We'll have to see.
It will be interesting to see how they play it. And I think Richardson, again, the reporters yesterday were suggesting they thought there was a better chance he would play. Now, if he doesn't practice, he's got a foot, right? And what's the other injury? He's got two.
Yeah, he's got two.
He's nicked up in two spots.
Let me pull up the injury report.
Pull that up. And in the meantime, Flacco, who, as you remember, came off the sofa to help lead the Cleveland Browns to a playoff spot last year.
Foot and back.
Yep. Joe Flacco is the number 2 quarterback. Sam Erlinger, the former University of Texas star, is their number 3. So we will see if that comes into play at all. I have to think if they can still make the playoffs, Richardson goes. I would think.
I would agree with that
now,
for sure.
If they can't make it, and there's any doubt as to how much he's hurting, he's a young player. What do you have to gain by putting him in there?
Normally, I would agree. The only flip side I would say is that he is a young quarterback that already in his second season was benched because of poor performance. Like, it's not like a guy that you're like, we are 100% sure that this guy's our quarterback for the next decade.
Run.
No,
he
I
puts
get it.
himself in harm's way, this guy.
I get it, but if I'm Indianapolis, I don't know if he's necessarily shown enough since coming back from the bench where I'm like, he's 100% our starter next year without a doubt, case closed. Like, I don't know if he's shown enough. He's had some
I would
games.
not have drafted him in the first place.
Well, that's just my point. Like, if he's very banged up, they're not going to risk it. That is obvious if they're out of the playoff hunt. But if they're out of the playoff hunt and it's an injury where it's like he can't make it worse, it's just maybe a little bit of a pain tolerance sort of thing, I wouldn't be shocked if they still wanted to put him out there to, see what he can do these last 2 games. There are a lot of teams across the NFL that, obviously Giants being one of them, but don't have anything to play for in these last 2 games. But Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy are both banged up. They're still fighting to try to play on Sunday, despite nothing but pride to play for.
They have standards to play for, too, though. The marks that you were talking about. Anthony Richardson's not going to break anybody's marks.
No, but I think for Richardson, it goes back to what I was just saying with that he still needs to put some good tape out there for the Colts coaching staff.
For his sake.
For his own sake.
For his sake, I hope if he does play, he doesn't hurt himself any worse. Because he
100%.
does like contact.
Yes.
And that can be very counterproductive for a young guy.
He embraces contact instead of trying to avoid it, which most quarterbacks do.
Now, I got another guy I want to point to. Again, our number is 201-939-4513. I got another matchup that I want you guys to look at on Sunday because it's a really, really, really good test for Elijah Chapman. The kid has, and I say kid because he truly is a kid. He's a rookie. Okay, he has been starting now for the better part of the last month for the Giants. And Andre Patterson is so proud of him. He took him under his wing when he got here as an undrafted rookie free agent out of SMU at defensive tackle. And he is the only member of the Giants' defensive line who has played in every game so far this season. Injuries have ravaged that position. Chapman, even though in the middle of the year he only played sparingly, he has taken at least a snap in every single game this year on defense, not just special teams, but on defense. Patterson talks about him glowingly, as if he's almost a relative. So proud of this guy for coming out of nowhere and giving the Giants some really solid effort, some solid snaps. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, you have any idea who he lines up against?
Quentin Nelson.
Bingo. Quentin Nelson, 6-time All-Pro / All NFL or Pro Bowl guard.
Amazing guard.
Been one of the best. Now, grant you, Nelson is not quite what he was 2 years ago. He's been beaten up. He's dealt with an awful lot the last couple of years. He's not quite as elite as he was, but he's still going to be, I'm sure he's still going to the Pro Bowl. And probably will get votes for the All-Pro team, too. I'm sure that's not unlikely.
Yeah.
He's still who he is. What a great piece of education for Elijah Chapman to have to take snaps against Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Your iron sharpens iron. What better way to improve and grow as an undrafted rookie than going up against one of the best players at the position when you're matching up against him almost every single snap?
And by the way,
it's going to be a great test.
That's where Taylor usually runs, behind Quentin Nelson. And can you blame him?
I would do the same thing.
That's where the Colts want to feed their running game. They're going to use Nelson as the road grader. That's what he does, and that's the way the Colts roll. So you can expect Elijah Chapman, who, again, let me say this carefully now, because they always say he's not undersized, he's just short. For him to go up against Nelson, how many pounds is he giving away to Nelson? Quentin's got to be about 325, 330. What do we have on him?
I'm trying to get
because
the Colts
Chapman, they list him at about 285. I think Coach Patterson says he's 290.
330 on the Colts website.
So he's given away potentially 40 pounds. Now, he's called the baby bison for a reason, because Chapman has tremendous power for his size. His strength and power quotient is terrific. Man, this is one heck of a test. Giving away 40 pounds to an elite guard. I'll be honest, folks, I'm going to be focusing in on that when the Giants are on defense. I'm going to want to see how well, what is the measuring stick going to be for Elijah Chapman? How far has he really come? Or is Quentin Nelson going to do a number on him?
Yeah, I have a sort of similar feeling towards another. It's not quite the same one-on-one type of matchup, but I'm very interested to see how Darius Muasau plays in this game, because since Bobby Okereke went down, he's missed the last 3 games, Okereke. That has led to Muasau stepping into the lineup and seeing extended action. I mean, he was barely, other than week 1, which Micah McFadden missed, Muasau was not on the field for that many defensive snaps for a good portion of the season until Okereke went down. These last 3 games, I believe it was, he played like 75%, 100%, and then 99% of the team's defensive snaps.
And has 25 total tackles in those 3 starts.
Which he led the team in tackles this past week against the Falcons. So now that it looks like Micah McFadden might also be sidelined, you're missing your 2 anchors of the middle of your defense, your 2 leading tacklers. Someone has to step into that role, and especially against Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, and this run game. Even if Richardson doesn't play, going up against Jonathan Taylor and this Colts offensive line, led by Quentin Nelson, as you mentioned, which, while they may not be quite the same level of the Colts offensive line from a few years ago when they were potentially the best offensive line in the entire NFL, this is still a pretty good unit that has been playing at a high level all season. They don't give up many sacks. They create running lanes for whether it's Richardson or Taylor or one of the other running backs. So I want to see how Darius Muasau performs, and especially in the run game. Can he play a big factor in the Giants? I'm not going to say completely containing Jonathan Taylor, because, again, he's one of the best backs in the league. He's going to get some yards, but not letting him rip off those 60, 70-yard touchdown runs. Muasau is going to play a very big role in that.
Now, one of the things that Shane Bowen said about Muasau in talking to the media this week is that they've been very happy with his instincts, his intelligence, his energy level. He gets guys lined up. He seems to be very poised and in control. And as Bowen said, that's the position he played at UCLA anyway. So it wasn't a huge transition in terms of what they were going to ask him to do. It was just the step up in competition. And they're pleased with what they've seen from him so far, but you're right. This is this is a chore. Jonathan Taylor's the real deal. Now, the Giants will see a familiar face on that Colts offensive line. Also on Sunday, Mark Lewinsky was activated off their practice squad a few weeks ago, and he is now starting at right guard. So, certainly the Giants know all about him. Not that that's going to make a huge difference, because I do expect them to run more left behind Nelson than they will behind Lewinsky, but that may be a little bit of a heads up in terms of looking for your keys as you try to penetrate the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, definitely. And just looking at the Colts injury report, we haven't gotten today's injury report, but from the first 2 days of practice, other than Anthony Richardson, only 2 other players have not participated in practice: tight end Mo Alley Cox and linebacker EJ Speed.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the Colts are relatively healthy, especially for week 17. It looks like they're going to get wide receiver Alec Pierce back, who I was talking before about Richardson taking those deep shots. Yeah, he's been dealing with a concussion. He missed last week's game. Alec Pierce has been the recipient for a good majority of those Richardson deep shots. The 2 of them have just been able to connect on those 50, 60-yard passes at a decent rate this year. It looks like he's been a full participant this week, so it looks like he will clear the protocol in time to play. Another wide receiver, Michael Pittman, who is the alpha in that wide receiver room, has been a full participant the last 2 days with a back injury. Of course, they also have Josh Downs, who is their very talented, shifty slot receiver. He's not on the injury report, but just bringing up the wide receivers. Adonai Mitchell is another one. They have an interesting and talented group of young wideouts. But yeah, they are, for week 17 of the NFL season, they are relatively healthy, this Colts team.
Some interesting thoughts about the Colts. 6-1 against teams under 500, 1-7 on teams above 500. They have truly been a team that has taken advantage of the poor and needy, if you will. That's just the way it's been. And actually, to be frank, that's kind of the way you have to make the playoffs in the NFL. Beat the teams you should beat, and you're going to be in contention for a wild card at the end of the season. That's the way it's set up, really. That the league just happens to fall that way. Then you got to steal some games against the better teams, and you get in.
Yeah,
But that's the way it is right now. Here's the number or the specifics about the Colts. It says here, obviously they play Jacksonville in the final weekend of the season. So the point being, if the Broncos and the Chargers should lose, all right, if one of them should lose, I still think there are permutations that could help the Colts get in. Mm-hmm. But if both of them should lose, the Colts will be licking their chops.
Oh, yeah.
Because they got to think in their minds they can beat the Giants and they can beat Jacksonville. Although the Jags beat them earlier this season, that's the one loss to the sub-500 team. The Colts got to be thinking, oh, my goodness, we got a real chance. So, if you're interested in incentives here, I think the Colts are going to be extra souped up if Denver and LA lose.
Yeah, as you mentioned, even if one of them loses, they obviously still have their season to play for, so they will come out, with their hair on fire. On a similar note, even though this is looking forward 1 week, just about the Eagles' playoff situation, because I've seen a lot of fans on Twitter speculate about the Eagles resting everyone in week 18 to,
I don't think that's going to happen.
To help the Giants actually win the game.
I don't think that's going to happen. Position. I don't think so.
I personally don't think that will happen either, but I've seen it enough where I just want to quickly point a few things out.
We'll have a lot of time next week to talk about this, but go ahead.
First of all, it looks like Jalen Hurts is not going to clear concussion protocol in time, and he's going to miss this week's game against the Cowboys.
Right.
Obviously, the Cowboys don't have much to play for, but it is a matchup against your division rival. If you have a chance to screw them over, the Cowboys are going to come out there and give 110% to try to screw over the Eagles.
You mean Jerry Jones wants to win this game? Really?
If you're the Cowboys, despite you're not making the playoffs, you still want to finish the season above 500, which they have a chance to do if they win these final 2 games. So there is a chance that the Eagles could lose Sunday. And if the Eagles lose on Sunday, and Washington beats who do they play? They play the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Then heading into Week 18, the Eagles need to win. Otherwise, they could potentially lose the NFC East. Because if the Eagles lose these last two games and the Commanders win the last two games, the Commanders take home the NFC East title and get the number 3 seed in the playoffs. So Philly still has a lot to play for. They still need to win a minimum of one of these two games. And even if they do win this week, if either Detroit or Minnesota lose this weekend, which the Lions play the 49ers on Monday Night Football and the Vikings play the Packers on Sunday, which obviously that Vikings-Packers game could easily go either way. And even the Lions-49ers game, it's in San Francisco. San Francisco's out, but they're still playing for pride. And, everyone that's healthy enough to play is going to be playing for San Francisco. If either Detroit or Minnesota loses, then the Eagles still have a chance at the 1 seed going into Week 18. They would need whatever team lost this week to then win next week and beat the 2-loss team, and then they would need to beat the Giants, and then they'd have, if that happened, I believe they would at least have a chance, depending on tiebreakers, for that 1 seed. So it's not even a report. It's pure speculation that a prominent ESPN media member first put out there, but I just don't see.
I think he was half joking. He thought it was funny.
If he was joking, that's one thing. Okay, but regardless, he put it out there. He put it out there, and that's it spread like wildfire. Wow. I'm just saying, Giants fans, I don't think that's going to end up being the case because I don't see it. Like the Philly's going to try to win. No team wants to go into the playoffs limping, like barely getting in because other teams lost. Like you want to be playing your best football going into the playoffs. And if you're Philadelphia, just the way that the Giants season has gone and the way their season's gone, that week 18 game, regardless of how it goes this weekend with the Eagles and Cowboys, next week's game, they could be looking at as a situation like, let's get everything on track. Let's start firing on all cylinders, play well, maybe pull the starters at some point, but get them some action, have us feeling good as we then enter the playoff stretch.
You also have the potential of Saquon Barkley getting 2,000 yards and even potentially catching Eric Dickerson for the all-time NFL single-season rushing record. We got to tell you that, folks. It's a fact. It's certainly in play. So we mentioned that. Don't forget the Giants Huddle podcast is available with all kinds of interviews this week. There will be a long-form interview with Elijah Chapman. You can search for it on your favorite podcast platforms. So go to giants.com/podcasts. And if you're an Apple Podcast member, don't forget to leave a nice review so we know to keep up the program. Another number I wanted to throw out about this game with the Colts. Zaire Franklin, linebacker, leads the National Football League with 151 combined tackles on the season. And Kwity Paye leads the Colts with 7 sacks. Okay? Those are two guys you do have to watch out for. In addition, we talked to you about Buckner earlier. But here's the thing I want to tell you about Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin has 23 missed tackles on the season. And you're talking about a Colts team that for the year leads the NFL in missed tackles with 141. You think the Giants have had trouble bringing guys to the ground? By comparison, the Giants have 103 missed tackles, 8th most in the league. Colts with 141 missed tackles. My goodness. I would not. I mean, as bad as we have seen missed tackles in this place, I can't even imagine those kinds of numbers. That's dreadful.
Yeah, that is quite bad. And I mean, as you mentioned, the Giants have also, kind of struggled with missed tackles as well. But yeah, the numbers you just brought up, the Colts defense takes it to another level. Now,
in addition, another number which will help construct the narrative of this game is the Colts blitz percentage. On passing downs, they only blitz 18% of the time. Okay? That's 29th in the league. 4th fewest in terms of blitz percentage. They go with their 4-3, and that's it. That's what they're playing most of the game. They're not going to do a lot of stuff to you. So it remains to be seen if the Giants' offense, which in itself has had a lot of trouble scuffling for points this year, it remains to be seen if they will be able to do any damage against the defense that, in all honesty, does not put a lot of pressure on you, and misses a lot of tackles. That's a real good reason why, in addition to Richardson's touchdown to interception ratio, it's a real good reason why they're 7-8. And right now on the playoff bubble as opposed to being in better contention.
Yeah, that's true. The one thing I will give the Colts defense credit for is
they get turnovers.
Despite their low pressure rate, they have been able to force turnovers and get takeaways at a very high rate this season. They're ranked, I think they're tied for 5th or 6th in terms of defensive takeaways.
-2 overall in terms of ratio. Giants are -10.
They have 3 takeaways in each of the last 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they won one of those games and lost one of those games. The game they lost was against the Broncos in Week 15. They had 3 defensive takeaways, but their offense turned the ball over 5 times. So that just goes to show that -2 number you said, that plays a big part of that. Because as I mentioned earlier, Anthony Richardson, as talented as he is, he's got to protect the football better for, Indy's sake. He's a sort of a turnover machine. So, but yeah, their defense is able to force takeaways. Kenny Moore, their talented slot corner, had 2 interceptions last week. He's one of the top slot corners in the NFL. He's playing great football this year. So Wan'Dale Robinson will likely, match up against him for a good portion of this game. It's a tough matchup for Wan'Dale Robinson, but he's shown that he's able to create at least some separation, almost regardless of who's guarding him. That's just the type of route runner he is. He's very elusive. His small stature makes him a little tough to guard and find on the field sometimes, but that's certainly going to be a tough matchup. Kenny Moore's tied with the team lead for the Colts with 3 interceptions with Nick Cross, the safety. This defensive unit for the Colts doesn't get after the quarterback too often. They're on the bottom half of the league in terms of sacks, but they are still able to force takeaways, which I guess in a sense able to force that many takeaways while not getting much pressure at all is kind of impressive.
Well, in terms of yardage allowed and points allowed, both the Giants and Colts are giving up 24 points a game so far this season. Now, some of those points come on specials or come on turnovers or come on field off of really bad field position. So I don't want to say these teams are equal defensively, because if you dive a little deeper, what you see is that the Colts are giving up over 44% third down conversions, which, once again, bottom 4 in the NFL. They are really having a tough time stopping third downs. And in terms of yardage, they are also bottom 4 in the NFL, giving up over 360 yards a game. I mean, there's no comparison, even though both teams are giving up 24 points a pop. Defensively, the Giants have been a much sounder defense than the Colts have been this year. The big difference for the Colts, and again, it helps in their record, is the fact that the takeaway ratio is a lot better.
Yeah,
that makes a big difference.
And the Giants' defense lack of takeaways is what has led to I guess some of their struggles and low numbers.
All right, practice is over. Locker room is open. We've got interviews we've got to get to, so we're going to cut this program just a tad short today, folks. We do apologize. We remind you, Sunday game is 1 o'clock kickoff at MetLife Stadium against the Colts. 11 a.m. You'll get the 2-hour WFAN pregame show, followed by the game, then a 1-hour MSG postgame show right after the final gun. 2-hour WFAN postgame show right after the final gun. And that'll pretty much do it, my man.
Yeah, and just real quick, for those that have turned their attention already towards April and the NFL draft, there are some important or interesting bowl games this weekend to keep an eye on for Giants fans. The Pop-Tarts Bowl tomorrow, 3:30, is Iowa State versus Miami. Obviously, Miami quarterback Cam Ward, one of the top quarterback prospects. And then tomorrow at 7:30 p.m., BYU versus Colorado, Shedeur Sanders playing. And then for me personally, Vanderbilt has its bowl game in about 2 hours, the Birmingham Bowl, but I don't think any of you are interested in that. So,
and for what it's worth, my alma mater, Fordham, we're still FCS. So we don't get to play in any of those big-time FBS bowl games. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. You've been watching Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. We'll see you next time.